Okay, so in the exam, you are probably going to get a question like this at level 1. And what it'll ask you to do is it'll ask you to look at two extracts from a text, and it'll ask you to identify similar ideas that occur in both extracts. Now, the idea behind this, obviously, is that you closely read both extracts and try and draw out where they've basically said something very similar or the same, but in different words. And we're going to have a practice today, and we're going to practice with longer texts. So you should have downloaded the text file that goes with this, the two documents. So you should have these on you and be ready to look through them. And what we're going to do is we're going to identify some of the similar points that both these texts make. Now, the first text is taken from an article about apprenticeship schemes, and it's giving the negatives, the cons, the downsides to an apprenticeship over, say, choosing college. The second text is taken from an apprentice's story. So basically telling about their time when they were doing an apprenticeship. So just to start with, I'd like you to read through both these texts, jot down a couple of ideas, a couple of similarities that you might have found. Write down as many similarities as you possibly can find, actually. There's many similar ideas in both texts as you can find. Pause the video now and do that, and then we'll go through it. Okay, so firstly, we'll have a look at the first document. And it says here, hard work. You're going to have to work hard to get your qualification and practical work completed. And you might sometimes have to miss social events because you have to do a full day's work every day and study as well. So you've got the idea here that you're going to be working so hard, you're sometimes going to miss social events. Now, is this an idea that comes out in Jack's story as well? Well, we do get the idea that he's missing out on some of the great social events at college, don't we? So we get this idea that, yes, if you take an apprenticeship, you might miss some of the social events at college. Let's have a look at the second one here. Low pay. As said previously, you're paid to learn. Apprenticeship wages tend to be minimum wage. You'll only get a pay rise when the government changes the minimum wage. So let's have a quick look through that. Well, he doesn't seem to really mention anything much about the pay here, really, does he? So we can sort of dismiss that. That's an idea that isn't really repeated in both. It's not an idea, it's not a similar point that's been raised in both. So you'll start at the bottom, you need to learn the basics. You might find some of the tasks you start with are boring. That's just a fact of life. So this seems to be talking about starting at the bottom, and when you first start, a lot of what you do is going to be quite boring. And is that an idea that is repeated here? Well, if we have a look at the third paragraph here. Over time, the role provided me with great exposure to all aspects of the business, although a lot of my first tasks were repetitive and boring. So, yeah, we've got this idea that your first tasks when you do an apprenticeship might be repetitive and boring, and as is repeated in both as well, the idea that you're learning the basics. You're there to learn the basics. So we could actually separate that out as a separate idea, really, couldn't we? Because he talks about it improving his time management skills. So we've got two there, really. We've got the fact that you're going to start at the bottom and the first task is going to be boring, but we've also got the idea that learning these first tasks is actually really important. Now, last one. Competition is tough. Apprenticeships are in high demand, more so than college places. So we get this idea that the application process for an apprenticeship is pretty tough. And again, that's an idea that's repeated here, despite a tough selection process because of fierce competition. So we've got several ideas that are repeated across both of these. Now, in the exam, you're going to get shorter text to work with. Obviously, with this video and with this task that you've just completed, I want to give you an idea of basically finding as many similar ideas as possible. But that's broadly how you look at this. You're reading both documents in detail, you're picking out key ideas, and you're seeing where those ideas have been repeated in the other document, possibly in a slightly different way. Okay, so there we go. Now attempt the assignment below.